Today we'll be covering the top 3 most underrated Titan builds for Endgame. We've got a Trinity Ghoul build that is an ad clear monster. We've got a double glaive build with huge overshields and melee damage, as well as a champion destroying stasis build utilizing a long overlooked exotic bow. So let's go over the Trinity Ghoul setup. Obviously we're taking Blade Fury here since this is more of a strand type of build. We take thrusters so we can move around the map more easily, Frenzied Blade, Pulse Grenade. We take Knockout and Consecration because we want to be able to take out the champions quickly, as I mentioned before. So we want to hit them hard, hit them quickly, and make sure they don't come back. Alright, for fragments, we go Facet of Protection, as always, really good for the extra resistance. Facet of Awakening, Facet of Generosity, Facet of Dominance, and Facet of Purpose. Facet of Purpose is generally good for pretty much any build because whenever you pick up an Orb of Power, it's going to grant you some type of buff. And in our case, because we have Blade Fury, which is Strand, it's going to give us Woven Mail each time we pick up an Orb of Power, so that's amazing. So as far as weapons in general, I like to take the Call. This one has Lead from Gold and Desperate Measures because I don't want to have a special ammo finder in my armor mods. So whenever we pick up heavy ammo, I want it to also fill up the Call. So that's why we take that. Desperate Measures, obviously it makes our damage ramp up the more kills we get. Alright, we take the Trinity Ghoul here, and for anyone not familiar, you get Split Electron. Fires an arrow that splits when released, aiming down sights and fully drawing the bow, both decrease the spread. And on top of that, you get Lightning Rod. Precision kills grant the next shot chain lightning capabilities. Once you have the catalyst, you no longer need to have the precision kill. You actually can generate the Lightning Rod trigger from any arc damage final blow. So it could be a body blow and it'll still work. Okay, and then I like to take Wicked Sister just because it's a grenade launcher and those are overpowered. They pretty much have been for the past year or so. This one specifically because it has Bait and Switch. Bait and Switch is just amazing for helping you kill champions quickly while they're stunned, especially overloads, because once they get out of their stun, they're going to regenerate all their health. So this helps us make sure that they don't come back. Now, if you are going to be fighting against unstoppable champions, I would swap out the Call and take in the Super Cluster Shotgun instead, because once you have the artifact perk, we'll break the barrier shields for you. Alright, as far as the seasonal artifact perks, I like to take mine with Anti-Barrier Shotgun, Overload Breach Loaded Grenade Launcher, and Authorized Mods Melee. Second column, one with Frost and Killing Breeze. There's not really a great second option in this column, but at least with Killing Breeze, once we get a rapid weapon final blow, it gives us mobility so we can move around the map easier. Third column, we take Total Carnage, especially since we equip ourselves with at least 2 pieces of the Shade Stalker armor, which means that once we get a finisher on a powerful combatant, say a champion, then we get increased damage resistance as well as replenish a small chunk of health. So that's pretty good. We also take Trace Evidence since we are doing arc damage thanks to Trinity Ghoul, so it's possible that we activate this and are able to generate ionic traces. The thick of it is just really good since you're always going to be surrounded by monsters pretty much in any activity, so free armor chargers there. Debilitating Wave, which is really good. Since we're finishing champions anyways with our Total Carnage perk, may as well tack on Debilitating Wave to hit the enemies around us while the finisher's going off. Concussive Reload is one of the OP perks this season just because grenade launchers are already good. Now they allow you to weaken champions in the process of using it, so that's just a win-win. And like I said before, we're using Trinity Ghoul, which is an arc combat bow, so if we get rapid precision hits, we get to consume an armor charge to blind the target. And that works hand in hand with Trace Evidence. And then in the final column, we just take arc compounding because if you're using any kind of arc weapons, or really any kind of arc sources of damage such as abilities as well, you're going to want to use this to increase the damage you do to blinded targets. Okay, moving over to the armor mods, we're obviously taking an exotic class item. So I like to go with Spirit of the Star Eater and Spirit of Inmost Light, just because with Star Eater, we get to overcharge our super, which is Blade Fury, and Blade Fury is a roaming super, so it's going to come up more often than just the regular one-off supers. On top of that, they have buff damage to champions, so just making them do more damage overall is going to destroy champions and take down bosses that much quicker. Obviously, Inmost Light is OP, and whenever you use an ability, it makes the other two regenerate even faster, so that's just something you always want to have if you can squeeze it in. For basic armor mods, we've got Hands-On, Strand Siphon since we're using 2 strand weapons, Arc Siphon because of Trinity Ghoul, we have 2 heavy-handed, and we have 1 impact induction since we're doing a lot of melee damage and attacks, so we may as well reduce our grenade cooldown in the process. Obviously take whatever resistance you think you'll need for the activity. Since we have strand weapons, we take harmonic reserves, which gives us strand ammo. Charged up just helps us get off those blinds on enemies if we have more armor charges available. Recuperation, arc weapon surge, strand weapon surge. Okay, time dilation so that the armor charges last longer. Healthy finishers, since we're doing a lot of finishers with the build anyways, we may as well get back as much health as we can in the process. And then we go outreach, since we want to reduce our melee cooldown whenever we use a class ability. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Trinity Ghoul. While the Trinity Ghoul build is near unbeatable for ad clear, Double Glaives focuses on up close damage and survivability. I almost went with a triple glaive build, but not having access to our melee ability at all just felt terrible. So anyways, let's get into it. Alright, so let's hop on over to our double glaive setup. So for this one, we're taking Glacial Quake just because it's a roaming super and they got buffed recently, so pretty much it's hard to take anything on Titans besides the buffed roaming supers because they're so good right now. We take Towering Barricade, Frenzied Blade since we're going to be using Consecration, Suppressor Grenade. I like to take Unbreakable just because this lets you put an overshield over yourself, and well, you'll see the overshield has synergies with one of our glaives. Alright, Consecration because it's pretty much the best Titan aspect at the moment. For fragments, we go Facet of Protection, Facet of Awakening, Facet of Dawn. Facet of Dawn is more of a, I wouldn't call it a crutch, but so Facet of Dawn is more of like a plan B because it lets us take care of barrier champions since we don't really have weapons that can deal with barriers. Okay, we take Facet of Blessing. Since we're doing a lot of melee hits with our glaives, we get to regenerate some health back. Facet of Purpose, which is just always good on any build. And then Facet of Courage. I like to take Facet of Courage just because it buffs our Consecration against enemies with Darkness debuffs. So basically, if you can debuff a champion with a Darkness ability, such as Frenzied Blade or some type of Stasis, then our Consecration is going to do a lot more damage to them and help us kill them before they can regenerate their health. Alright, as far as weapons, for the kinetic slot, we take Rake Angle, and I like to take mine with Chill Clip just because it lets us pretty much stun two different types of champions, Unstoppables and Overloads. And then Replenishing Aegis is just really good because anytime you block attacks, you get to reload from your weapon reserves. So you don't have to go through the whole reloading animation. Okay, Excalibur. So this one here is probably the highlight for the weapons that we take. And I don't have the catalyst on this one, but I don't think it's actually necessary. But in case you don't know, Excalibur has the M1R distribution matrix. Fires a spread equipped with a quick draining shield. Blocking damage with your shield gradually bestows void overshields to yourself and nearby allies. So not only is it great because you generate an overshield for yourself and your allies, but that also synergizes with Perpetual Loophole. Deal additional melee damage while protected by an overshield. Defeating targets with melee final blows while the overshield is active will refresh it. So basically, if there's a lot of ads around you and you're able to start killing them off and then blocking to regenerate your overshield, you can consistently have an overshield on you at all times and power up your melee hits with the glaive at the same time, so it's amazing. And then since we're trying to prioritize having overshields, I like to take a grenade launcher that has destabilizing rounds plus repulsor brace. So that way, whenever you kill enemies and the surrounding ones become volatile, once you take those out, you get to generate a free overshield. So that's going to do it for the weapons here. As far as seasonal artifact perks, it's going to be pretty close to the last build we had. Once again, we just take Anti-Barrier Shotgun, Overloaded Breach-Loaded Grenade Launcher, Authorized Mods Melee, one with Frost, Killing Breeze. Alright, and then in the third column is where things get a little bit more interesting. Total Carnage, of course, because we're going to be doing finishers as pretty much can with any build this season, thanks to these perks. But Power from Pain. Rapid final blows against weakened combatants grants you Devour. So we are able to weaken combatants through various methods, so this will allow us to develop Devour even without going straight into the Void subclass. Alright, and then obviously the thick of it is really good for getting free armor charges when you're surrounded. Debilitating Wave. Concussive Reload. Since we are taking our grenade launcher, this is pretty much a must on any build. And then since we are doing a lot of void damage thanks to Excalibur, we take Supernova. Picking up a Void Breach causes your next source of void damage to create a large weakening pulse. And that weakening pulse is just going to synergize very well with Power from Pain. And lastly, because we're doing stasis and void damage, Serve Cold, we get both benefits from it, right? Picking up a stasis shard grants you class ability energy, and picking up a Void Breach grants you melee energy. We're basically getting free class and melee energy by using both types of elements. Alright, and then as far as armor mods, For our exotic armor piece, we are taking One-Eyed Mask in case you've never used it, because I mean, a lot of people don't use it. Why would you? Highlights the target who dares to damage you. Track down and destroy them for an overshield. So once you receive damage from that enemy, they're going to be highlighted for 8 seconds. And if you kill them before the highlight gets transferred to another enemy, then you'll be granted an overshield, which is actually 95 HP overshield. That's huge, pretty much your whole health bar. And it lasts for 6 seconds. And that's amazing because it synergizes with our Vexcalibur. Say you have the overshield on and you manage to kill another monster, you just refresh the overshield and you get to keep that buff on your melees, specifically your glaive melees. So that's why we take One-Eyed Mask. And then as far as the other armor pieces we like to go Special Ammo Finder since we're taking 2 glaives. They both use special ammo. We take Void Siphon, Hands On, Double Heavy-Handed, Grenade Kickstart, Void Reserves. You take any type of resistance you need for the activity. I like to take Sniper Damage Resistance, but since you're going to be up close, you might want to take Melee Damage Resistance, Recuperation, Void Weapon Surge, Absolution, Outreach, Reaper, and then Healthy Finisher, since we're going to be doing a lot of finishers with pretty much most of our builds this season. And that's going to do it for the double glaive build. We've covered Add Clear at a distance, powerful melees with overshields up close. So now let's get into my favorite build of the 3, Verglass Curve plus Thunderclap. Alright, so jumping over to Verglass Curve for the subclass, we are taking Glacial Quake as our stasis super of choice. We're going with Thruster, Thunderclap. It's going to be a very powerful Thunderclap at that. We get Glacial Grenade. We take Diamond Lance, Knockout. And then for the fragments, Facet of Protection. It's pretty much a must on any build. Facet of Courage. Thanks to Facet of Courage, we actually get to buff the damage that our Thunderclap is going to do because we're going to debuff our enemies before we hit them. Alright, Facet of Awakening, Facet of Devotion, and then Facet of Purpose. Thanks to this, whenever we pick up an Orb of Power, we'll get Frost Armor off of it, which will synergize really well with the artifact perks. Alright, so jumping over to the combat bow itself, Verglass Curve. In case you haven't used it before, you get Hail Barrage. Final blows with this weapon grant stasis arrows. Your next hip fire shot will fire all of them in a single volley. And this can stack up to ×5, so it's possible to shoot a volley of 5 arrows and they all create stasis shards if they land on the ground. So that's pretty much what Hailstorm says here. Direct hits with stasis arrows free combatants and slow opposing guardians. Stasis arrows that impact the environment create stasis crystals. So one thing I will say for this bow is that the volley of stasis arrows that you shoot out, they're much shorter than you would think. They don't go out as far as if you're aiming down sights, right? So you're going to want to get a little bit of practice in to get a feel for where the arrows are going to land, because I promise you they're not going to land on the enemies because they're not going to travel as far as you expect them to. And also you can tell I don't have the catalyst here, but I don't think it's really necessary for this combat bow, and it takes quite a while to get, so I wouldn't worry about it. But yeah, Verglass Curve is amazing because it's able to freeze, which means it's capable of stunning unstoppable and overload champions just with one weapon. And since we can handle 2 with one weapon, we may as well handle the 3rd with our second weapon. So that's where Hand in Hand comes in. So this often overlooked energy shotgun is one of the few that has Pugilist as a trait. Usually Pugilist weapons grant 10% melee ability energy on kills, but since this is a shotgun, it actually grants 20%. On top of that, since it has arc damage, it has pretty good synergy with the seasonal artifact. As far as the second trait, I'm pretty happy with Hipfire Grip, only because I try not to aim down sights with the shotgun at all. Hipfire Grip will increase the accuracy, stability, and precision when firing from the hip, but on top of that, this has the field-tested origin trait, so whenever we get a kill with this weapon, it's actually going to increase the range and stability even more. Alright, and then lastly, I like to take another grenade launcher, which pretty much any build does nowadays. So I like to take my grenade launcher with Slice, and that's because if we're able to apply that darkness debuff to enemies, then that triggers Facet of Courage, which will buff the damage that our Thunderclap does to enemies. And then after Slice, I just like to go Cascade Point. So Cascade Point will just let you fire off your grenades at a faster rate, and that'll just make sure that you can kill off enemies faster and not give them a chance to retaliate. Alright, so let's go over the seasonal artifact mods. Now our weapons do have a mix of stasis and arc damage, so for those reasons we take the stasis and arc mods that we can apply. So first column, same as the other builds, anti-barrier shotgun, overload breach alert grenade launcher, authorized mods melee. So we take one with frost, we take killing breeze, total carnage, trace evidence, the thick of it, debilitating wave, concussive reload, retinal burn, And then in the last column, we take arc compounding, which is pretty much essential for any type of arc build that you're using this season. So that'll do it for the weapons and the perks. Let's head over to the armor mods. First and foremost, we're taking Point Contact Cannon Brace. This is probably the MVP of the season for any type of arc build that you do for Titans. But in case you haven't used it before, it's got Hammer of the Gods. Defeating targets with your Thunderclap melee restores melee energy. Targets near you, when you use your Thunderclap, suffer lightning strikes and become jolted. Being amplified increases the damage of these lightning strikes. So thanks to our knockout aspect, we are able to become amplified pretty easily, and since we get to increase the damage of the lightning strikes that take place after we kill someone with our Thunderclap. Alright, for the rest of the armor mods, let's go over them real quick. We take Double Hands On, Strand Siphon, Double Heavy Handed, Melee Kickstart. I take Double Resistance, so go ahead and choose the resistance that applies to the activity you'll be undertaking. Alright, and then Strand Reserves. Follow that up with Recuperation, Stasis Weapon Surge, since our primary weapon is a Stasis weapon. Alright, Absolution, Distribution, Outreach, and lastly, Healthy Finisher. Alright, that's going to do it for the Verglass Curve build. I'd like to say thank you again to everyone's surge of support lately. Thank you to Steel Grams for being the first member of the channel. Thank you to everyone that has been tuning in for our impromptu live streams. I'm working on a set schedule so that we start off 2025 on the right foot. I'm going to try and get out one more video before this year is over, but just in case I don't, have a wonderful holiday season. Spend some time with your loved ones. I'll talk to you all again soon. Take care.